Hello and welcome to this ABC10 Plus special on our investigation into SeaQuest Aquarium and Zoo. I'm investigative reporter Andy Judson. Zoos and aquariums host roughly 180 million people each year, but some critics are worried about the safety and the standards for both animals and customers at a popular interactive aquarium called SeaQuest, where customers can pay to touch, pet, and feed wild animals. Now, SeaQuest has 7 locations across the United States. This special will focus on their only location in California, right here in Folsom, where former employees question animal care and say the company only cares about money.
Costa Rica. Known for lush jungles and tropical rainforests. Over 500,000 wildlife species call it home, including the sloth. Yet some of these nocturnal, tree-dwelling creatures are 4,000 miles away. In Folsom, in a mall.
It was like walking into a shopping center that they had emptied out the clothes and shoved a bunch of animals in.
Amanda Turner's family went to SeaQuest for the otters.
They're not pretty.
They're not pretty. That we couldn't even see the animal that we were feeding, and it was just filthy.
SeaQuest is a national chain with 7 different locations across the U.S. advertised as interactive aquariums. But it's not just fish. Wild animals from 5 different continents are at the Palladio Folsom Mall, the only SeaQuest location in California.
I was just overall disgusted with the conditions, the smell, how they were treated.
So we decided to go to SeaQuest to get a first-hand look. As we walked through, we saw animals living in refrigerator-sized enclosures with no reprieve from customers.
They don't really have anywhere to go.
No windows.
No fresh air, no sunlight, no nothing.
And a whole lot of people, even swimming in tanks and having birthday parties.
I mean, lines around the building.
It's what this former SeaQuest employee saw every day. Worried about retaliation, she asked us to not show her face, but wanted to share her experience at SeaQuest, which she came to after working at a zoo.
It must have seemed like kind of a perfect fit for you.
Yeah, it did. I just wasn't too thrilled with some of the enclosures.
So you noticed that right away?
Right away.
Quickly, her concern grew from the small enclosures to...
The sloths come from Costa Rica, so if they don't get that humidity, they can actually die.
The humidity levels for sloths there were as far as 34% lower than what they should be, a 2023 citation by the U.S. Department of Agriculture found.
They just start shutting down, their body can't handle it.
That's not all. When a fish jumped out of a tank, 2 minutes passed before employees returned it, a video by PETA shows. In 2023 alone, records show the USDA found SeaQuest Folsom storing toxic cleaning chemicals near bird food, an abundance of flies, an open electrical socket in an animal enclosure, and not having records on where or how they got birds. That's just at the Folsom location. Records show across the U.S., SeaQuest has been cited by the USDA over 80 times since 2019. In collaboration with ABC News, we asked SeaQuest for an on-camera interview. They declined, but in a written statement, they said they implement training and procedures to prevent citations and do daily USDA checks. As for the lack of sunlight, they said UVB lights have the same benefit the sun does, and animals have adequate room for their health and mental stimulation in their enclosures. As for how SeaQuest gets animals,
I don't know where they came from.
But we did find in 2013, the brother of SeaQuest CEO was sentenced and spent time in prison for animal trafficking. The company said he has not ever been nor is currently involved in any way with SeaQuest. Yet, according to the U.S. Department of Justice, in 2016 he traveled to Las Vegas and Layton, Utah, both where SeaQuest facilities are, to consult on aquariums, all while lying to his probation officers about the travel.
That was one of my initial concerns too, is where they came from.
The animals come from rescues, donations, reputable breeders, zoos, and aquariums, SeaQuest said.
Nobody would ever really say it.
Really haven't seen you all day, girl.
Yet her biggest concern was people's interactions with the animals.
The interactions are the ones that pay the bills.
To pet animals, you pay for an interaction. $50 to pet a sloth.
They would try to book as many interactions as possible. You're thinking thousands of dollars in a day.
What was that like for the animals? What did you see?
USDA regulations, each animal is supposed to have breaks. There was no real breaks. They booked them back to back to back to back back.
This makes animals anxious, she says, like a wallaby that would not stop shaking.
They did take the wallaby to the vet. It's definitely from stress.
SeaQuest said they do adhere to USDA required breaks and they never force animals to interact. They added that if animals did not voluntarily exhibit a desire to interact or show any signs of discomfort, the interaction is suspended. That's not what we witnessed during our visit.
They're full, they're tired. So, I'm going to give you guys a small report. Number one, you are being out an hour pressure focus. Number two, you stay here, I go by 5 minute timer, and you keep trying.
We got interactions to do, interactions to do, interactions to do.
Employees were encouraged to prioritize interactions over animal care, she says.
Was it hard for you to keep up?
It was.
Like
it was.
the care
It
for
was.
the animals?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that we were at least a day behind every single day.
There's no excuse for animal abuse!
When SeaQuest Folsom opened in 2018, protesters were outside. ABC10 got a tour with CEO Vince Cavino, who said this.
There's always room for improvement. So we're taking all the measures. We've done extensive training.
SeaQuest said their number one priority is animals' health and safety. Our anonymous employee disagrees. To her, cash was king of the SeaQuest jungle.
Do you feel that the animals' quality of life was sacrificed so they could make money?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Did you have any deaths when you were there?
Yeah. We had a few.
SeaQuest said the vast majority of animals' deaths have been from natural causes, but they did not provide a number despite saying they have official documentation of each death. The true number of animals that die at SeaQuest is unknown, the U.S. Humane Society says.
Animals do die and they're replaceable in just a few minutes because they can just get a new one and name it the same thing.
She says SeaQuest is violating the Animal Welfare Act, a federal law that regulates how animals are treated.
The United States Department of Agriculture implements the Animal Welfare Act.
In a statement to ABC News, the USDA said they take this responsibility very seriously by conducting inspections and enforcing violations through warnings, monetary penalties, and suspending and revoking licenses.
I don't think they're really going out there and seeing what's going on in these facilities.
While a SeaQuest in Connecticut closed in August 2023, shortly after the USDA issued violations, the Humane Society says it's not enough. The USDA needs to do better
And not allow this kind of thing to happen.
The Animal Welfare Act needs to be changed, strengthened, she says. Until then, SeaQuest will operate the same.
Yeah, this one was also really small and dirty. I think SeaQuest is a recipe for disaster.
A disastrous recipe not just for animals, insiders say, but also for customers.
And the next thing I know, she's screaming because the thing just completely came out of the water and got her hand.
Michael Distad says his 4-year-old daughter was bit by a fish. When they alerted SeaQuest Folsom staff,
The feeling, the sentiment was that it does happen.
That's true, our employee says, especially when animals are forced into interactions.
They don't want to be messed with, they just lash out.
In 4 years, Folsom Fire Department has been called to SeaQuest 18 times. That's over 4 calls per year. And 15 incident reports have been filed with Folsom Animal Services in the last 5 years. Nationwide, ABC News found at least 76 incidents of people getting hurt at SeaQuest facilities. SeaQuest said guest injuries are taken very seriously. All incidents are documented and their staff are trained for these issues. They did not provide a specific number of times customers have gotten hurt. But the former employee we spoke to says when customers get hurt, it's the animals who ultimately pay the price.
They put the one cat that scratched the kid in a small crate for 10 days to where his litter box was spilling into his water. It was awful.
For her own well-being, she says she walked away shortly after her year anniversary.
It broke me. I cried. I cried for like a couple weeks. I still think of them.
She doesn't just think about these animals. Today, she spoke for them.
Doing this, it kind of gives me a little bit of peace of mind. Hopefully it makes a difference.
The U.S. Humane Society recommends if you plan to visit an aquarium or zoo, check to see if it's accredited by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. SeaQuest Folsom is not one of those accredited institutions. Having this accreditation ensures more oversight, something employees say is greatly lacking at SeaQuest. In fact, they call what's happening at SeaQuest neglect. Shortly after this report aired, nearly 20 more former SeaQuest employees came forward, wanting to tell us about their experience and use their voices for the animals at SeaQuest. They also provided documents and graphic photos as evidence of the poor treatment. Now, we do want to warn you that some of the images may be difficult to watch.
As a kid, I've always had a strange love for the unloved. Do you want this Boogie Boo?
Whether they have scales,
I also call him my cookie bear,
gills, or fur, pets in Elle's home are treated like royalty. But Elle also has pictures of other animals she loves, and they tell a much different story.
That is a molded parakeet body. There was a huge pile of cockroach poop behind the door. She wasn't eating. They still had guests see her like this.
These animals live inside a shopping mall at SeaQuest.
This was from the hedgehog being stressed out and running with his nose pressed against the glass till it bled.
To the public, SeaQuest is an interactive aquarium and zoo
that you can pet, meet, and feed animals face to face with.
But to Elle and others who worked there,
it's directly animal exploitation that SeaQuest is profiting from.
Elle not only shared photos, but also provided us with dozens of internal documents. By doing so, she put herself in a vulnerable position, which is why she asked us to protect her identity.
Do you still think about the animals? Is that why you're talking today?
Oh, I'm gonna cry. It's hard. I think about them every day. It's something that every SeaQuest worker goes through. We've all cried together. We've all wanted better for the animals that we fell in love with, and they're stuck there. They don't have a voice, so I hope everybody comes together and becomes the voice for them.
They did. After our first investigation aired, employee after employee came forward with even more to share.
I remember watching it and being like, she's hitting everything. This isn't like some over-dramatized thing. Like, this is legit.
Today we've spoken with 18 employees. This group agreed to go on camera.
Raise your hand if you saw an animal die at SeaQuest.
ABC10 obtained photos and videos of animals hurt, sick, dying, or dead.
There's probably well over 1,000 animals and fish that have died since the opening of SeaQuest Folsom.
1,000 animals in 6 years, Elle estimates, but the true number is unknown.
My manager never asked me to submit anything when I found a dead animal, SeaQuest, as far as I know, never had documents.
SeaQuest told ABC News they have official documentation for mortalities on site, but they did not give us the exact number of animals that have died at their Folsom location when asked.
Why do you believe that animals do die at SeaQuest?
The prevention of letting us take care of them when they needed it.
A lot of stuff would get either overlooked or seen too late.
Employees told us they did their absolute best for the animals, but had restrictions from corporate, like how they believed the facility was unsafe.
I measured the temperature peak summer of 22 and it was 108.
And a lot of the paint is coming up through the dirt.
She was very well known for loving to chew on the paint that came up in chips off the floor.
That's not all. Small enclosures, tank leaks, open electrical sockets in enclosures, and cleanliness issues.
I believe with SeaQuest, all of it stems from the interactive aspect, which is what sets up failure.
Folsom team, hey.
CEO Vince Cavino pushes to make more money upselling customers on what's called interactions, as seen in this video he made for the Folsom team.
It's just that simple. It's just engaging, talking to the guests, showing them the animals, helping them to experience the animal.
This corporation is run by business people, not animal experts.
Interactions are premium experiences where guests can pay to touch and feed an animal. Staffers say the company directed all their attention to interactions, leaving no time for basic animal care.
As soon as 10 a.m. starts, you immediately go into interactions.
This photo of an interaction schedule shows back-to-back appointments. Interactions every 15 to 30 minutes from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
It was hard to find that opening to clean an animal's enclosure.
90% of the time, they weren't getting fed because there was not enough time or enough staff to do it.
I just want to show you something. This is from yesterday. I know because I made it. She's supposed to eat all of this. Or they're at least supposed to feed it out to her at night. Guess what they didn't do last night? Feed it out to her, which means she got about barely a third of her diet all day yesterday. I'm pissed. Not to mention, this is from yesterday. Tortoise's supposed to eat all of this. This is from yesterday. Our iguanas are supposed to eat all of this. Our baby torts are supposed to eat all of this. And our sloths only got about half of their diet. I'm so over this.
It wasn't just a time conflict. Some workers told us management gave clear marching orders. The only way an animal gets fed is if a customer pays to feed it.
You're not allowed to feed any of the animals anymore. It strictly needs to be just what people are paying for.
And then you're watching animals not eat because they're being partially starved.
We went through a period in time where the sharks started to try to eat the stingrays.
This fish was bit in half by a shark that was hungry, internal messages show.
It happened with the otters too.
Yeah.
They started eating the fish in their tank.
But then our sloths would literally cling onto the door that would open to the guests because they were so hungry.
When asked about withholding food for paying customers only, SeaQuest did not respond. Out of all the employees we spoke to, Erin was the only one that thinks interactions were not forced.
She would come out because we would present her with celery and carrot sticks, and she would come out just to eat those. But like I say, nothing was forced.
Would you all agree with that experience?
No, that sounds like real early SeaQuest.
Erin worked there when SeaQuest first opened, but other former employees say things got worse after he left.
We would get a write-up if we personally were feeding one of the animals without a guest in there interacting with them.
Employees say they realized SeaQuest's corporate team didn't care about the animals like they did.
They're here for money.
Another issue was having no quarantine system when SeaQuest opened, they say.
Which is a big no-no for any aquarium.
Animals should always be kept for a period of time quarantined before being introduced to a new tank or enclosure. Other animals and SeaQuest customers, employees explained. This is to ensure they adjust and have all parasites die off.
Because they wouldn't bother with quarantining them, you would then infest an entire tank, but then children and parents are sticking their hands in that tank, and then they're taking their contaminated hand to another tank, and the next thing you know, the whole aquarium has parasites.
And a video shows it. You can see parasites inside the dead frog. Several photos also show fish and crabs with parasites. That's why employees fought for a quarantine system.
How many hours, days, and weeks it took us just to get the pitiful excuse of a quarantine system that we had?
5-gallon bucket.
Yeah.
We went to management and we said, go lock yourself in a bathroom that's about 2 by 2, and that's what you're putting the sharks in.
Here's footage of how animals are kept in SeaQuest Folsom's back rooms. In cages much too small for them, employees say. As for quarantined fish,
most of them never went back to their habitats. They ended up dying in the quarantine.
Because they were so small?
Yeah.
SeaQuest told ABC News each location has dedicated veterinary team members who do walkthroughs of all exhibits and enclosures. But some employees say when animals got sick,
rather than taking this animal to the vet, they had us do in-house treatment by sending us a YouTube video.
Internal messages show team members figuring out how to treat birds for bumblefoot, a common bacterial infection, from a Wikipedia article.
Because if a person had to go take this animal to the vet, they're losing a team member on the floor to do other SeaQuest things such as cell interactions and do interactions.
If they did go to a vet, it was often too late. Like for Mango, a toucan with iron poisoning, Elena says.
He didn't react when any of us came and walked up to him like he normally does. A few hours later, ended up finding out that he just wasn't going to make it. They ended up euthanizing him.
ABC10 obtained veterinarian records showing SeaQuest animals arrived at the vet with high temperatures, dehydration, pinworms, anorexia, and stress. When animals like parakeets and fish died, employees say rather than take them to the vet, they were told to do the necropsy themselves.
It's an animal autopsy.
SeaQuest says necropsies are performed by trained experts, but didn't answer any of our other questions about staff doing them.
We don't know what we're looking for. We were told to watch a YouTube video.
After fish necropsies,
we were told at that point, if everything looks fine, give it to the otters.
Which isn't a good thing because of our quarantine system, we don't know what parasites those fish might have had. Now we're feeding it to something else.
Not all employees experience this. Some were shocked by it.
What?
Is that like normal at animal facilities?
No.
Okay.
Some dead animals were left to rot, like these molded parakeet bodies. An employee complaint to the U.S. Department of Agriculture said animals in the mortality fridge, where their dead bodies are kept, had been there for 6 months and were next to living animals. And ABC10 obtained footage of SeaQuest's mortality fridge, the fridge filled to the brim. SeaQuest did not answer any of our questions about this.
We're not supposed to tell anyone that anything died. If something is deceased in a tank, pretend it's alive. And then we'll just go get a new one, kind of thing.
Where do the animals come from that go to SeaQuest?
So most of the fish come from like regular fish importers. A majority of them are wild caught.
SeaQuest says it gets its animals from rescues and donations, which records show can be true, as well as other zoos, aquariums, and reputable breeders. But employees say there's more to it. There's a lot of places SeaQuest gets animals from.
We got a lot of our reptiles from the Reptile Expo.
Also PetSmart. I went and got a lot. And the Food Mart.
A food mart, as well as the 99 Ranch Market in Folsom. That's where Caitlin says she was sent to get crabs, catfish, trout, and shrimp.
We'd go in and, normal clothes. We were told to do that, so no one that's there could be like, something's weird going on there.
Records show animals were sent from other SeaQuest locations that were shut down. Other times, employees had no idea where animals came from.
Baby animals coming onto site, and we'd question, where are these babies coming from?
But the story is that they're rescued, and we're working on rehabilitating them and rehoming them.
Yet in this video from CEO Vince Cavino to SeaQuest Folsom,
we are putting in a big order of animals for your site over the next couple of days.
He encourages them to place their orders.
If there are animals that are missing from your animal inventory report or that you feel are missing from an exhibit, please send me a message.
Vince's thing was more.
More animals, more interactions, more money.
SeaQuest easily saw 500 people a day, up to 1,000 people a day, and you'd have, what, 18 people working in the building?
At one point, there was 1,700 people in the building.
SeaQuest told ABC News interactions are a superb source of enrichment for our animals, but it's not enriching, employees say. It's harmful.
The animals are getting stressed because that room is literally filled to the brim with people.
By law, animals must have breaks from interactions. SeaQuest previously told ABC News they give animals break time equal to the time they spend doing interactions. Some employees say that's not true, especially when it was busy. Animals got no breaks.
You just write them down like you did them.
Yeah.
They're not ever really checked.
They would just have me do them back to back to back to back to back.
When animals get stressed, like humans, they lash out. ABC10 obtained multiple incident reports of guests and employees being bitten and scratched. But if an animal hurts someone, SeaQuest has a rule, Elle says. After 3 incidents, the animal is euthanized.
So that's why a lot of bites go undocumented by employees.
It's one of many ways SeaQuest employees try to protect animals. Internal messages show employees sounding the alarm over and over again. But they say management brushes it off, or worse.
I found Rex cold and dead, and somehow I got in trouble.
And that's not too uncommon of SeaQuest. You did something wrong, no matter how much you fought for their well-being and care.
It's not just animals who suffer at SeaQuest, they say. Employees do too.
At one point, I had woken up to get ready for work and contemplated whether or not continuing to live was an option, because I hated it so much.
Now here I am years later, having nightmares of my time there, having nightmares of people kicking parakeets to where their heads are on backwards.
Suffering mentally, emotionally, and also physically.
I have really bad lung disease because of ozone poisoning, which happened from the ozone machines not being put in correctly.
These machines are often used to clean aquarium tank water. Ozone is a gas molecule that can aggressively attack lung tissue if breathed in, the American Lung Association states.
And that one was leaking for the whole time that it was up.
Caitlin's medical records show she inhaled ozone for 9 hours a day over 6 months.
I was coughing up blood in parts of my lungs quite often.
She still suffers from it, she says.
I wasn't the only one having issues with it.
An internal incident report shows another employee reported ozone exposure, saying they had constant nausea since working at SeaQuest.
A lot of us stayed so long was because we loved these animals.
And now they're speaking for them.
Unfortunately, right now, with a bunch of the wildlife laws, SeaQuest wins.
Employees have reported issues to the agency regulating SeaQuest, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, multiple times, records show. Most issues were deemed unsubstantiated, allowing SeaQuest to stay the same.
So it's up to us and the guests that come to visit to really try to fight back against that and be like, no, we want to know, we need our voices heard.
Heard by customers.
Seeing people line up 1,000 in front of the shop definitely doesn't give you a lot of faith in the public.
We have to all be the voice for these animals more than anything, because SeaQuest needs to be shut down.
We reached out to SeaQuest multiple times for an interview and sent them over a dozen questions. They did not respond to any of our questions. Instead, they referred us to the frequently asked questions section of their website, which did not address any of the allegations or inquiries brought forward in this story. SeaQuest Folsom has responded to customers on Google reviews lately, telling them there's been, quote, a spread of misinformation and to, quote, not believe everything you hear on the news. So we asked SeaQuest why they're telling customers this, and again, they never responded. Now that's where my investigation stands right now. If we have new developments, we will bring them to you right here on ABC10. And if you liked this story, we have other investigations just like this one on the ABC10 Plus app. You can also find the latest newscasts and headlines and stay up to date on weather conditions. Thanks for watching. I'm Andy Judson. Take care and see you next time.